Basically, about 30 years ago, my son was born, and I started taking, obviously, pictures. Most people do. It's with the arrival of a child. And after a wee while, I started to realise I was shooting rolls and rolls of film. First thing I did was go out and buy a camera, probably make the same mistake that we all do. And I think the first one was a Praktika, I think. It's an old model, but it's a German made, East German at that time, which was cheap, cheerful, 35mm film. And then I realised I said they're not that particularly good, so I joined a camera club, and basically it took off from there. It's something quite, more and more people start to ask you as they realise that, I mean, this guy's a photographer, you know, the family, friends, and this, can you do this, can you do that? And then before you know it, somebody says, can you do this wedding for me? Can you do this, you know, in a professional manner? So I really kind of started that way about 20 years ago. So and at that time we used medium format cameras, same again, film. So you then start to realise the limitation of some of the gear you've got. But I will say one thing, you had maybe 2 or 3 rolls of film, and that's how you shot a wedding. You know, about 48 frames, and you got it right for every single frame. You know, that's probably the way. But the way into digital, I think, as most people, when we started to see how much easier it was, and of course it was a cost thing as well, because film, although it's a great medium, it's costly to buy, to process, and if you weren't doing the stuff in the darkroom, then obviously someone had to do it for you. The pluses for it, which I think we don't have now, is the fact that there's a physical object there for you to see. We don't do that anymore with digital. That's the loss I feel when we switch to digital. I'm so used to seeing that Facebook, I'll use Facebook as a medium rather than some of the other. I mean, there's many things have blossomed from that, where we put up phone pictures or pictures, these what we call the selfies, and people are used to seeing someone with their arms stuck in the air with a phone at the end of it, or sitting, you know, looking in a mirror and getting a picture taken. And people are saying, you know, this is a nice picture, this is it. And people start posting, photographer speaking, crap. And people, yeah, and the thing is, it got to the extent where, as you said, everybody's a photographer. Basically everybody with a camera is a photographer. And the stuff, because we see it now in Facebook and all the other different public mediums that we share around with our friends and all the rest of it, then in the past, people who did prints, you only sort of saw them in exhibitions because we had the rise of the internet at the same time. So we've got a lot of web-based photographers who are not photographers per se, as in, I'm in the business of photography. What they're doing is working at a full-time job, if they are working. Most of them are, you know, working at a full-time job, and maybe at the weekends or whenever, you know, someone approaches them, they'll do a wedding or somebody's portrait or, you know, a family thing or something like that. And that's fine, I don't have a problem with it at all. But it gets to the stage where that is taken away from guys who in the past would maybe make it as a photographer, as a full-time profession. They no longer can because the price differential as well. If you've got a full-time job at the back of what you're doing, then you can afford to either do it for nothing, do it for little, or do it for less. So that's where the real problem starts, I think. I do quite enjoy, which a lot of people don't see, is the model work. Obviously, I mean, there's quite a few guys in it as well, and the vast majority are women. So it's, for a guy, heterosexual male, there's nothing bad about that. But of course, it's everybody's, I presume most guys dream of doing that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, you're there to provide a service because they're actually paying you. They're paying you to provide something for themselves. It's not as if you're taking a picture of a friend or something like that. You've got to provide results. I'll mention somebody like Ashley Collins, people who are artists, related to earlier about a film, so film stills and things like that. The film work, I would say, between that and the modelling, the actual film work, I really enjoy it. You get a good buzz out of that as well. But the model stuff is probably the bread and butter stuff. And then of course the sports at Braehead Clan, that's been an absolute revelation. I was never what I call a particular sports photographer previous to that, but the way things set up and ended up, that's what I was doing.